The world of handmade business can be tough when trying to monetize what you love. We've got truth bombs and motivation to help you find your way through. Passion to profit, let's start today, 'cause the world needs what you create. Tune in right now, it's your shot to learn how to be a handmade boss.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Big Update podcast episode. We are going to be doing these, we're thinking probably every quarter, something like that, to basically do a big old roundup of all of the important changes that we think you need to know on places such as Etsy, Shopify, Instagram, Facebook, all the kind of platforms that we know that a lot of you out there use. And yeah, we just basically want to do a big old roundup of all of the stuff that matters, because as we know, there are a lot of people who are, it seems like every day, every week, are like, you need to know this change, you need to know that change. And 9 times out of 10, you probably don't really need to know about it, right? So if you want to see a platform featured on these, then do DM me over on Instagram and just let me know as to what kind of platforms that you use and what you'd like us to take a wee look at. So let's get into Etsy. Okay. So the first change that I really wanted to mention is when this episode goes out, literally on that day, the old listing form will be going away on Etsy. So RIP, the old listing form. I used to actually really like it. I've only started using the new one recently, about 2 months or so ago. And I like the new form because you don't have to scroll. You can just quickly switch tabs, and that's lovely. But I just liked the order of it. For me, in my brain, I think the order of the old listing form was a lot better. And, you know, you started off with the title, you then moved to the description. Like, it just made sense. Whereas this new place, it's, you know, if you're listing a lot of listings very fast, it can be a little bit confusing. It can be like, okay, I need to switch to price and inventory, then the details and the shipping. It just seems a little bit wonky, but I'm sure we will all get used to it. So the big thing is that you don't have to scroll. It's basically like a tabs system where you list items and the tabs are all there. It stops you having like an endless page that you have to scroll through. You can still scroll, but the tabs are still there. You also have a lot more access to the performance. So when a listing is live, you can actually look at data review. So it's nice because it's all in one place, which is really good. So you no longer basically have to go onto the homepage, tick the little stats box and find them there. It's all in one place. Now, also, it's got a nice footer, which is always on the screen, which reminds you if you've published it, if it's a copy, all that kind of stuff. Now, I don't know about you, but the amount of times that I've gone to list something, thought I've saved it, and then clicked off of the tab, and it's only by the virtue that Google Chrome is like, do you want to leave your unsaved work? And I'm like, no, that I actually save it. So that's useful, right? And also, it's got a really good preview feature on there as well, right? They're saying that it's only getting better. They're saying that the listing, the new form is getting better. I do like the fact that they are making changes. They are making it easier for people to actually list their items, because at the end of the day, we need more people to list items, right? So that is the very, very first thing. Nice and easy. The second thing is a little bit heavier. Okay, so this is the trust and safety highlights. They have recently published a little bit more of a bullet pointed view as to what they are doing. So I'm just going to go through the bullet points here. Now, I would recommend listening to the episode that I did where I talked about Etsy's future. It is one of my most popular episodes. Let me just find out what the actual number of it is. It's episode 6. So if you want to go and have a little listen to that, I would highly recommend that you do if you are interested in updates and all that kind of thing. But basically, the bullet pointed version is they are doing a lot more to protect you from spam. So if they think it's a spam message, they might hold it and say, do you want to accept this? It's also a really good thing as well that they have a separate tab for ones that come from Etsy, because obviously a lot of the spam messages were fronting as being directly from Etsy, which they were not. So that's great. They have also really started to, I don't want to say make new sellers jump through hoops, because I think it's actually a good thing. But with the introduction of the shop onboarding fee, and they are really cracking down on basically what people can open up a new shop. So they've got an enhanced identity check. So you have to upload things like a driver's license, passport. They've got a $15 fee, which I think will probably go up. To be honest with you, I think before the year's out, that will go up to $19.99 or $20 or something like that. And I think probably in the next 5 years or so, that will be going up to $50 or something like that, because I just think that is enough of a deterrent to stop these shops that just come on, want to make a quick buck and then go again. And they've also really looked at, okay, how can we make changes to the payment schedules for new shops so that they have to almost prove themselves that they have a good track record. So if you are thinking of opening up a new shop, you might have to jump through a few more hoops than you used to have to before. But in my opinion, this is actually a really good thing, because it means that we are stopping all these drop shipping shops that open up shops over and over again, and they're selling non-handmade goods. Now, don't get me wrong, it's not going to stop people from listing crap, but it is there to make people jump through more hoops, okay? Now, on that note, they are really cracking down, and they're actually going to be redoing the policies around what is handmade so that it is more clear. And what I mentioned in episode 6 is that, for example, I think people who sell pod or who sell basically things where you go onto Creative Market, you go onto Etsy, you buy a clip art bundle, and then without changing it, you then put that particular clip art on a mug. I think that is going to be something that they are going to be cracking down on, especially looking at the end of this year, okay? So they're going to make it very clear what can and cannot be sold on Etsy, and that's something that I am seeing them doing. Instead of using grey area language, which they have been doing before, they are being like, this can and this cannot be sold, okay? They know that it can be really annoying when we see listings that quite clearly are not handmade. And that is the reason why a lot of buyers have been starting to raise their hand and kind of say, hey, I can buy this thing on Amazon for the same price. And Etsy are like, you cannot mix real handmade goods with people who do not make handmade goods. It doesn't work. So they are really cracking down on it. The next thing is they are going more into looking at their policies around adult content, hate violence. And the interesting thing that I found really interesting was off-platform transactions. So it's a very short part of policy, and I will link it below. It's very short. Basically, they say we are committed to making everything, all the transactions safe. And then they then say, because navigating off the Etsy platform may increase the risk of fraud or scam exposure, taking communications and transactions off platform is not allowed. This includes, for example, making offers to buy or sell outside of Etsy, encouraging buyers to purchase an item in your Etsy shop through another venue, or using a QR code to direct users off of the Etsy platform. Then it says a transaction initiated on Etsy may not be completed off of Etsy. So that to me is quite clear that they're like, you cannot be like, oh, hey, if you want to go onto my own website, here's a QR code in my Etsy banner. It is a little bit grey area as to email lists, social media, all that kind of stuff, because it's not a transaction. They do say communications, but that to me is very much, if someone wants to catch up with you over Instagram or on your email list, it's okay, that's not relating to a transaction. So I would like to see a little bit more clearer wording around that, really, because you do not have a social media network apart from Explore, which, to be honest with you, I don't know what's going on with Etsy Explore. I feel like it's just sitting there. it's a good thing to use it. But like the old Etsy shop updates, Etsy Explore, they've never quite managed to get this social media network going, have they really? Let's be honest. And I'm like, okay, most shops are looking to expand their business and drive their own traffic. So how can they turn around and say, people cannot follow you on Instagram? So I would 100% recommend, if you are in doubt about this, reaching out to Etsy directly, speaking with them and saying, hey, like, I want to direct people to my Instagram page just because it's a much easier place for me to keep up with people. I can go live on there. It's got a lot of the functionality that Etsy Explore does not have. If you are in doubt and if you are like, oh, I'm not really sure, you can take the QR codes out for things like email lists and social media channels and all that kind of thing. But I think they would be hard pressed, to be honest with you, to be like, we're going to take your shop down because you have a QR code that points to it to Instagram or something like that. I think it's more for those who are like, have a massive Etsy banner that's go to my website, it's 20% cheaper, which obviously I can see why they wouldn't want that, right? But that's only my opinion. Please, if you are in doubt, make sure to speak to Etsy directly. The next thing is gifting updates. So they are really going all in with this whole gifting thing. So they now have gift teasers, which I recently got a gift from Etsy, and they're actually really cool. It basically, as soon as they order it, they are pretty much emailing the person being like, so-and-so has bought you a gift. And then it's really nice because they give you like a digital preview and they say, hey, here's what they've bought you, and you can add like a little message, all that kind of stuff. So it's really nice. But they're basically really going all in on this whole gift mode thing. And I think really, if you are someone who doesn't list, I'd probably say 80% of your listings as using gifting keywords such as moving house gift, going away gift, something like that, then I would say it's probably time to start, right? And the next and last thing that I'm going to talk about is the spring and summer trends for 2024. So this is basically a report of, okay, this is what we've actually seen on Etsy being popular. So at the beginning of the year, they're like, this is what we predict is going to be good. And then they go, okay, this is what actually was good, right? So the first thing is that people are buying gifts for milestones that perhaps ordinarily you wouldn't necessarily buy gifts for. So their examples are things like pet gotcha days, divorce gifts, BFF anniversaries, all that kind of stuff. So this is good because this means that it's no longer limited to graduation, Father's Day, Mother's Day, Valentine's Day, Christmas, but it's like, hey, there's always something to buy a gift for. So my recommendation to all of you would be to think about what other occasions and research them. What's other occasions and reasons that people can buy your products? For example, they saw a 30% year-on-year increase in searches for friendship gifts, 175% year-on-year increase in searches for custom or personalized gifts, 32% increase for pet gifts, 34% increase for self gifts, which is really interesting, which says to me that people are viewing buying gifts for themselves as a gift, like you are gifting something to yourself, which is really cool. I think you guys could do a lot with even offering like self gift wrap, and then maybe adding a little surprise in there for them so that when they open it, they're like, oh my God, there is like a legit gift in there that I didn't know was going to be in there. And we also saw, amazingly, the biggest jump for searches was a 266% year-on-year increase in searches for divorce gifts. So people, like I said, they are really looking at how they can usher in a new age. They can celebrate milestones. They can really be like, hey, this is something that we need to celebrate, right? The next thing is all out after parties. Now, they are specifically talking about weddings here. They are specifically talking about couples are looking to rather than having their wedding reception finish at 11:12, which I must say, when I got married, they were like, it has to finish at 11:30, which was a bit of a bummer because everyone was vibing, everyone was loving it. But because there were houses, I think within 5 miles, it was like the law says that it has to be done by 11:30. What couples are doing is that they're having the wedding reception, but then they're like, okay, where can we take this party and have it till like 4, 5 a.m, which I don't know if you've ever been to a wedding like that. I actually haven't, but it can be really fun. So they are looking to take the after party. So it's like you get married, you have a wedding reception, you have an evening do, then you have an after party. And that seems to be the way that a lot of couples are going. So there's things like outfit changes, basically making yourself it's almost like you go from wedding to evening club night out. For example, there has been a 134% year-on-year increase in searches for wedding sunglasses, wedding party decor, disco balls, acrylic signs, all that kind of stuff. They're really looking at how we can make it more fun. Okay, how we can make an otherwise stuffy wedding evening do a lot more fun, right? The next thing is they call it Chef's Kiss, and it's really looking at food, which is interesting. I think with the rise of programs such as Bake Off, there's loads. I mean, when I was a kid in the early 90s, it was Ready, Steady, Cook. I don't know if anyone can someone DM me, let me know I'm not like the only one here that remembers Ready, Steady, Cook. But I always remember that cookery shows have always been a massive deal. And I think foodies like me, I love watching people cook, bake, and I'm always thinking, yes, I'm going to do that. And then I never do. But it is something that we really like to embrace, right? And it is something that we're going to start to see food engrossed in a lot of different places. We're seeing food in jewelry, we're seeing food in fashion, we're seeing food in home decor. Like, we're seeing a lot of different culinary themed items that are coming into our homes, right? And it's even better because they're very bright. And that is something that I've personally seen myself on places such as Pinterest. The wholesale trend is that people are loving bright food themed items, right? For example, it's a 465% year-on-year increase in searches for host or hostess gifts. And I think this really does feed into, if you heard my trend report YouTube video, people are bringing the restaurant, bringing the coffee shop, bringing the places that they otherwise would have spent meeting up with family and friends to their own homes. And this feeds into that. So host or hostess gifts, a 1,454% year-on-year increase in searches for espresso martini candles, a 39% year-on-year increase in searches for pasta prints, 981% year-on-year increase in searches for martini jumpers. So it just goes to show that people are looking for culinary themed bright things. It's really bringing them into the everyday, bringing them into their homes. And I think people are really going back to the age of having dinner parties at home and hosting parties that used to be outside or in a venue. They are doing that at home now. Okay, so the next thing is Western, and this was one of the trends that everyone knew about right at to be honest, the end of last year, the end of 2023. People were like, yeah, the whole Western thing is going to be massive, and it teeters on the edge of boho. And that's something that I have found, is that people are searching for Western things, but they're also looking at the boho side of things as well. I think, for example, leather, suede, tassels, animals, all that kind of stuff, it can also cross into being boho. So for me, for example, I've seen a massive increase in anklets and things like that. And yeah, I just think it does play into the whole Western boho, very kind of outdoorsy vibe. Okay. Here we are seeing a 124% year-on-year increase in searches for cowboy or cowgirl boots, cowboy or cowgirl hats, for example. Another thing for all you guys who do jewelry or pins or stuff that is in kind of the jewelry category is a 428% year-on-year increase in searches for horseshoe charms. So that's an interesting thing. And basically anything Western, leather jackets, denim, Western bags, denim bags, tassels, suede, all those kinds of things are all seeing a massive surge of searches. The next thing is sports core. Now, obviously the whole sport aesthetic, I think it really follows on from the whole 90s trend that we've been seeing for the last year. Obviously, if you were born in the 90s like me, you are seeing a lot of the old stuff come back, like Alessi, Adidas, Nike, and yeah, we're just seeing a lot of the old sports stuff, the shell suit, the track suit, all those kinds of things. So we are seeing a 700% year-on-year increase in searches for hoodie dresses, 50% increase in pickleball gifts, 35% increase on custom baseball hats, and a 2,159% for outdoor games. And I think that has more to do with it being the summer, people are being outdoors, but even still, it apparently, according to Etsy, comes under the category of sports core. Now, also something that is worth mentioning, and I think it's going to be the last one that I cover, is Garden Girl. And this is very much my vibe. So I'm really excited for this because it's very much like looking at how can we bring the outside in. Now, this is things like clothing, botanical gifts, very ultra feminine floral patterns, really kind of looking at the outdoors and how we can integrate that into our everyday lives. So we're seeing a 231% year-on-year increase for garden blankets, an increase in wildflower art, an increase in gardening accessories, an increase in ruffled bedding. We are seeing an increase in everything floral, everything garden core, cottage core, garden core, all that kind of stuff. So that really does it for the Etsy side of things. So now let's move in to Shopify. So one thing that people in the UK and Spain are seeing is that you can actually ship to pickup points now. And this is every pickup points for every parcel shops, pickup points, all that kind of stuff. So it's a really good, convenient way to avoid the whole thing of they tried to deliver it, they weren't in. It really does increase the amount of options that you have apart from Royal Mail, USPS, all those kinds of things, right? So there is 7,000 every pickup point, and they say that it's allowing customers to collect their orders from every parcel shops. And also that is extended to Spain and orders to Correos, I don't know if I'm saying that right, locations around the country. So that is another update. Now, also there is a new checkout and accounts editor for merchants on basic, advanced and Shopify plans. And basically it's just making it a lot easier for you to be able to see your checkout. I must say this was something that I always found Shopify to be a little bit lacking, is that it didn't have a nice easy preview. It's not like the landing page builder that you have. It's like you have these boxes, you fill them out and then you click preview. Whereas this is going to have a far superior workflow, right? You can even start with branding capabilities now, and you can save them as drafts. So if you edit something, you want to save it as a draft and then publish it later, you can do that. But it's just making it a whole lot easier. Another quick thing too is that the Shopify cookie banner is now shown in the customer's native language. And they're doing that across 32 languages as well. Basically, with Shopify, I'm finding that it's a lot more daily little tiny tweaks and changes rather than what Etsy does when it's like a big thing that they do, right? So I would recommend going to the Shopify change log to see all of the kind of changes that they've done. Like I said, it's more like little tiny changes, but they do add up over time. And that's why I love Shopify, is that they do actually listen to what you ask for, what you want. So for any of you who have your own website on Shopify, this is a massive bonus. So let's move on to Instagram now, okay? And there is a couple of minimal updates and a couple of big updates, and they're not necessarily updates, but they're things that I have seen myself, right? In early May, Instagram released 4 more story stickers, right? So one is Add Yours Music, which is basically like you can jump on music trends and have them in your stories as well. right? So it's like everything that we've had for Reels, they're adding to stories as well. There was also frames. So that is really a nice thing to have, because it's basically where you can frame an existing image on a story, right? And you can caption it, you can do all sorts of, like, you can date it, you can do all that kind of stuff. It's basically a really nice way to do like a before and after, a throwback, something along those lines. So I would say to have a little play about with them, but frames is definitely something that I think you could use. I don't think it's something that will be as used as like captions or GIFs or anything like that, but it is still something that I would recommend to have a little play about with. Now, there's also the reveal sticker, which is interesting. And I like this because it hides a story, and the only way for them to see the content is to send you a DM. And I love this for anyone who sells online, because what it means is that you can immediately see who is interested in seeing, I don't know, a new product launch, something that you're working on, by them DMing you. And it really opens up the conversation, right? And immediately it's given me all of the vibes of you have people who are interested, you can follow up with them, you can message them. And this is the way marketing is really going. It is going in the direction of the mass marketing that we've been so used to doing and so used to seeing isn't really hitting home the way it used to. And it's more looking at how can we personalize the journey for each person, right? So basically, going back to the reveal sticker, is that you message them, you can ask them to message you a prompt, and then what you can do is that you can actually use automations such as ManyChat to then follow up with them if you don't want to do it on an individual basis. ManyChat is a charged app. I think it's $20 a month, but the reveal sticker is definitely something that I'm going to use myself, because it just means that people who are nosy can DM you, and you know they're nosy for a reason, right? It's just really helpful, I think, to build up that hype, especially if you're doing a product launch, especially if you're doing things where you want people to reach out to you if they are interested. The fourth one is cutouts. Now, this is really cool because it means that basically you can delete the background and create a cutout and put it over a background, right? So it's a little bit janky at the moment, I'm not going to lie, but basically you can take a picture of anything. It can be like the Golden Gate Bridge, it can be New York, it can be anything, and you can basically insert yourself on it. And it's really cool because it highlights it, it just makes it look, just really nice. And it's just a nice way, I think, even if you have products that perhaps you took a picture and you're like, I wish I had my products here that I could add this to. You can do it. You can create a sticker and then add it on top. It's not going to be like perfectly photoshopped or anything like that, but they are really looking at, okay, how can we enable people to add things in, right? So also they do have a new update that is new tools to help protect against sextortion and intimate image abuse. Okay. So they are really looking at how they can protect young people and make it more difficult for potential scammers, criminals to interact with teens. So I think if you have kiddos out there that are of that age where they are starting to use Instagram and starting to post things on there, you definitely want to read it. I'm not going to go through the whole thing because it is like it's a lot of pop-ups and things that are basically like, are you sure you want to share this? Photo might contain nudity. It's basically making sure to be like, okay, we're going to prompt you a little bit more than perhaps we're doing now. But I would 100% recommend looking at it, familiarizing yourself. And honestly, it is something that is well overdue, in my opinion. They should have been doing this ages ago, and they are really, I think, trying to be like, we are going to introduce some more protections for people who are under the age of 18. So 100% go and have a little look at that. Now, the next update for Instagram is something that I have spoken to a few kind of experts in the industry, and I'm looking at what are we seeing? What are the people who are actually using the platform? finding. Okay. Now, one thing that I am finding is that there are a lot of people, a massive increase in people who will not watch reels with the sound on. So all of these lip syncing reels, all of these things where people are not having captions is a big problem, because personally, from my point of view, I will never watch a reel with the sound on unless it's someone I know it's going to be funny, then I'll turn the sound on. And I think probably the vast majority of you watching, you're not always going to be the nuisance person who is sat, I don't know, in a dentist waiting room watching a reel with the sound on. It's really going to hinder a lot of people who are using, like I said, things like lip syncing, not adding captions. So add captions at all times. That's going to be my general rule of thumb now, is that always add captions. Okay. Now, the next thing is something that I have found, something that obviously if you're in like the kind of Mosseri threads verse, you'll know that he's like, shorter reels perform better, shorter content performs better, but then they're in the same breath, they're like, you need more watch time. And it's my personal point of view is that I agree that shorter reels do perform better. When's the last time that you've sat and watched a full 90-second reel from start to finish? Probably not a lot of the time, right? But I think we can all afford to spend 30 seconds or so watching it. So my kind of rule of thumb is something that I'm testing myself is reels that are 30 seconds or less, and they have captions on. You'll see that a lot of my reels sometimes are full length reels, 90 seconds, where I'm talking about how to do this, how to do that. And I must say, they are ones that don't really perform as well, even though they have a high watch time, because people want to know what I'm going to say. They want to know how to do X, Y, Z, right? That's one thing that I will say, really take the time to test shorter ones, longer ones, B-roll ones, which B-roll reels are basically where you shoot a video of something and you can have a voiceover, or you're just putting text over the top of it, right? I would test different types of reels, okay? And I wouldn't necessarily worry about dancing around, doing lip sync and all of this stuff. I'd really focus on doing reels that are short, to the point, and yeah, just like I said, get your point across early on. Keep it to 30 seconds or less. Try that, test it, and see how you go. So everyone, I really hope that you enjoyed this big update podcast. Now, as I said, I didn't go full into everything because I'm literally just going to try and focus on the changes and things that I think you guys would respond to the most, would need to hear the most. And obviously I didn't go into all things Etsy, you know, like their financial report that they recently came up with, because I did do a deep dive into that in episode 6. But I really hope that you have enjoyed this. If you did, please do consider leaving a cheeky little review, because it just helps to get my content seen more. And as you can probably tell, I do put a lot of effort into these podcasts, so please take 2 minutes to leave a review for me. It can be on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever, right? And DM me too. Let me know, are you finding these helpful? Do you want me to do more of them? Just because the more that people say, yes, I want this, the more I'm going to carry on doing it. Whereas if I don't hear from you, I might just assume that, hey, you guys aren't really vibing with this, right? So I really hope that you've enjoyed this, and I will see you in the next one. Thank you so much for tuning in to How to Be a Handmade Boss. And if you're eager to boost your Etsy sales within just 7 days, then be sure to join my most popular free training at handmadebosses.com/conversion. You can also find the link in the show notes as well. Keep an eye out for our next episode, where we'll be continuing our journey towards handmade business success together. And until then, keep crafting and stay inspired, because the world really does need those special creations that only you can make.